any question, comments from yesterday or week before that? We will have plenty of question and answer time at the end today. Everybody's okay?
Mark, I have a question, Mark.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I noted that I received the 1 minute. Give me 1 minute. Yeah, like the predatory lending. You explain a little bit the predatory lending.
Predatory lending?
Yes.
Okay.
What you refer to?
Predatory lending is something that when the bank or potential bank is basically trying to cheat and charge more interest rate or charge more fees than what's allowed. And that is called predatory lending, when the lender is not being honest and straight and they try to make more money, and it's basically illegal amount of money from the buyer, such as higher interest rate than allowed, or there are, they charge more fees and things like that. That is considered as a predatory lending.
Okay, I got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
How about steering? Steering
yes. Is more on the real estate side. When you tell client to go, because in the United States, remember we talked to fair housing yesterday. When it comes to fair housing, the agent are not able to steer, meaning steer clients towards a certain way. Says, you know what, Van, you want to live in this neighborhood because this is a good neighborhood. Oh, Van, you don't want to live in this neighborhood because this is not a good neighborhood. We as an agent are not to make that determination. Buyer themselves have to make that. Our job is to provide information, or you even tell them, that's basically steering, is you steer people towards a certain area or steer people away from certain area. You're not able to do that as a real estate agent. We provide the fact, and the buyer have to make a decision. So in other words, I'm working with you, Van, and you're Cambodian. So I could assume, you would like to live near a lot of Cambodian people are. And I'm only going to show you listing, or I'm going to tell you, Van, you'll be comfortable here because you have, lots of Cambodian people living around. You cannot do that. If the buyer says, Mark, I want to live in a Cambodia, people with a lot of Cambodian people, I could help them find that, but it's very difficult to do that. So right now in the United States, buyer is able to do their own research. And remember, we talked about due diligence yesterday. We'll talk a little bit more. Due diligence, the buyer should do their search and they should live where they feel comfortable. So that's what part of the steering and fair housing is. So it seems like some people say, Mark, what are we here for? Some buyer says, Mark, you can't even help me find the right places. But we don't know what's the right places for them is different on each time. And we cannot steer or we cannot direct people to live in certain area. But if the buyer says, I want to live, 1 kilometer from downtown, that's okay. That's not steering. If they want to live 1 kilometer to that, that's okay. So buyer needs to set the limit. So that's the bottom for the steering.
How about like stigmatized property? It is part of steering or not? Like stigmatized property or criminal or property?
In United States, depends on each state what needs to be disclosed. Depends on, what's the definition of stigmatized property? We don't know. Depends on who you are, right? Some people care about certain things and some people do not. And in the United States, we don't consider any property to be stigmatized. and like people dying in a house, or whether it's a suicide, murder, or whatever it might be, in my state, disclosure law is all different in each state. So it's all different. Like my state, we do not have to disclose if there was any type of death in the house. That is not a disclosure matter. Unless the seller says, please disclose, we don't have to disclose. We have no obligation to disclose. But if you go to California or like Alaska, depends on the situation, you might have to disclose that there was a death in the house. So it all depends on the disclosure, meaning that you have to tell people is what's depend on what the state law is in the United States. Remember, in the United States, that's why we call United States of America, because we have 50 different states, and most of the state has a different law on the many things. And those are all put together, and that's why I call United States. So almost United States, you almost feel like you have 50 different countries. So most of the law are handled by the state. Only big law that federal government handles is that of the, foreign affairs type of law and so forth. They do on human rights. But most of the real estate law, including disclosure and things like that, is handled by the state, and each state have a different regulations. Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mark. Mark, one more thing, like regarding to the CRA, I think there is a few instructions from the United States. I think CVEA they host. We studied only for half of the course. I think still there is half of course on the CRA. Is there any possibility to complete through you, like or we should re-study again?
For which class?
CRS.
CRS?
Yes.
So did Cambodia do CRS?
Yeah. I think in 2018 or something. I did not remember, but we complete half of the course, and still.
That one, I don't know. They need to contact the RRS, which is a residential real estate. If the CRS was started. Yeah, because I am not aware of that. I was not part of that. I don't know the CRS. CRS is total different. It's a part of the NAR family, but it's a total designation. It's not an NAR designation. So CRS is total different.
Okay.
Yeah, you need to check with the association and see whether CRS was even started. I don't recall Cambodia doing CRS, but I could be wrong.
We did it, but just only half.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why only half was done. So that I don't know. Wow. So, all right, let's get to module 5. Keep your questions, and we have a long time to, if it's not related to the topic, and you could ask any type of question at the end, like the other night, last night. So let's look at module 5. All right. So what's module 5? We're going to talk about contract to closing from you for Cambodia, making an offer to closing. And maybe this is a little bit, as you know, a little bit different than how we do things in United States. And of course, because like you said, most of the property were purchased cash in Cambodia. But it's not in a lot of other countries that I know of that the people get a loan to buy a property. So, but when you get a loan, it's a fairly similar process to other than that. All right. So, module 5 learning is explain the immediacy of the contingency to clients and outline the mortgage application process. We briefly going to do a mortgage process, guide your clients through the home inspection and appraisal process. Ensure that your client knows the different type of required insurance and understand the closing processes as well. Understanding the closing process, what kind of money it costs to close, is the same in every country, meaning that you have to explain that to the buyer. Sometimes the cost of closing a transaction is not just about amount that you're going to pay for the house. There are other costs and fees that's involved as well. So when you look at contract contingency, United States contingency, home inspection and financing is a very typical contingencies. In United States, usually the inspections are done after you reach mutual agreement, means you're under contract. Like in my state, it's all negotiable, but you got up to 10 days to perform a buyer perform the inspection, then report back to the seller to either the inspection was okay, or needs to negotiate, or inspection was no good, and they can get out of the deal, get out of the contract. Financing is the same thing. If you put a financing contingency, could be, that you have a contingency, of course, says, only way I could just buy a house is my loan is fully approved. Loan does not get fully approved until the appraisal is done. Appraisal, we talked a little bit, but we'll go through it a little bit later. And there are other contingency that you could agree on. Whatever the buyer and the seller agreed that to be a contingency, some here, home inspection to mortgage applications, all these could be a timeline and checklist. Because if there is a contingency, there's always a timeline and deadlines. And buyer, as the agent, we clearly need to understand those deadlines. And buyer, as a buyer, or even the seller, needs to clearly understand that as well, so that we don't miss a timeline. Because if you miss a timeline, potential harm could be you will lose a chance to get out of the deal, or potentially you could lose your earnest money as well. What are the typical contingency in your marketplace? Like I told you, inspection and financing is usually typical. Who is responsible making sure that they are completed? That is agent's job. If buyer put out a contingency upon it, make sure the buyer's agent have to know the timeline and respond by. And very hard. Like in my market and my MLS, some contingency deadlines like 5 days from mutual acceptance when we agreed on contract. But how do we count days? If it's less than 5 days, then it becomes a weekday only. Don't count weekends or holidays. If it's more than 5 days, you do count weekends, and but you cannot end on the weekends or holidays. And things like that. There are a lot of things that you even have to know about timeline as well. But it is very, very important as an agent to know when the deadline is. How much time is allowed to each? That all depends on what you agreed on the contract. And this is just a sample. Use it. They could have a day delivery of the earnest money. This is from the other one. Delivery of the good additional earnest money, if there is, and you got to put a deadline date on. And you share this with everybody in transaction, including the buyer, seller, listing agent, buyer agent. So everybody's on the same page and understands that when is a deadline is. And in our market, in our MLS, deadline for time of the day is considered as 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time is considered as end of the day. So everything deadline is 9 p.m. Mortgage application. I know you're not too familiar with that because you said most of the buyers are buying cash, but you get into mortgage, there's always a contingency. When you apply for mortgage application, you could turn it in early and you get pre-approval, but final approval actually does not come into play until approval is done. and a person called underwriter who will review all the documents and everything else and to make sure that everything's in place and they make the approval to the loan. Mortgage process this. One thing that you don't want to do is you don't want to, when you're getting a loan, you don't want to change your financial situation. You know, because they look at you more, they look at your income, they look at your savings money that you have, other debt that you might have, other money that you owe. They all look at that. And that's how they determine how much money you can borrow, including the value of the property. There are many times when we go under contract and we're okay, but buyer got so excited that they're buying a new home. They went and bought a car. They bought lots of furniture and stuff like that. And now they have additional debt because they use a credit card, or you have a less cash than what you say you do. Then that could potentially lead to not a final approval on the loan. So you really, really have to be careful on the financing, or even changing job could trigger canceling the loan or not getting a final approval. And you get estimate, and each lender has different fees and even interest rate potentially. So you want to check and make sure you get the right bank. These are some of the sample loan estimation sheet. They're going to share with you and say, this is how much money, this is the interest rate, this is what your monthly payment is going to look like, and things like that as well. It is not our job in the United States as an agent to follow up on an application, but it is always a good job. Good agent will always follow up with a buyer and follow up with a lender, a mortgage broker, to make sure the process is going okay, because we have some deadline that we have to meet if there's a financing contingency there. So let's talk about appraisal a little bit. Appraisal is, as you told, it's a third-party person. It's a special, different job. It's usually hired by the bank. So the bank could make sure the money that they're loaning and the property that they're loaning for is a good property, that they're not going to lose money on it. So appraiser is almost like an inspection. The appraiser goes out there, they look at the property inside, outside, then they do a report and report back to the bank saying, very good, you know, property is okay, you know, Mark is borrowing $500,000. Yes, this house is worth $500,000, so the bank will not lose money. That's appraisal. When the appraisal is lower, you actually have a chance to negotiate with the seller. Let's say a house you buy for $500,000 and appraisal comes back and say $450,000, and there's $50,000 gap. Either the buyer could pay it, or seller could reduce the purchase price, or you could come half and half. Whatever it might be, you have another chance to work on it. But if you have a financing appraisal contingency, the buyer could say, you know what, we were not able to get appraised right, so we're going to cancel the contract. They could do that. That's why contingencies are very, very important to protect the buyer. It's protecting more buyer than seller. Because in the court, judge looks at it and say, you know what? Yes, there are some harm done for the seller, but they still have the house. So there are many there, and it is very, very rare that if he goes to the argument and goes to the court makes seller sell the house to the buyer. That's very rare that happens. So as far as appraisal is concerned, there's a national guideline that's set by the government and the banking industry, so that they have to meet those guidelines. That's how they determine the value of the property. And if you don't like the appraisal came in, you as an agent can go back and dispute by providing a better comparables and say, this is why I think the property is worth 500,000, not 450. Not necessarily every appraiser or is going to agree with you to change, but always try. And that's something that I do once in a while to protect my buyers' earnest money, especially when the market was hot. Earnest money was very, very expensive. A lot of people put in $20,000, $30,000 escrow earnest money, and they don't want to lose it. Appraising the appraiser. You want to make sure if you're on the buyer side or seller side, if you have access to the appraisal, make sure you review it and it's correctly, especially when there's a dispute regarding the value of the property, your purchase price versus a appraisal price. But sometimes when you overpay because you really want the house, you have to understand to the buyer says, look, potentially you're overpaying, but you want to buy it because it's still really good property for you. You might have to warn them, say maybe the appraisal might not come in at the right price. And give appraiser a reason. Submit new information, submit new comps, and so forth. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to load the appraisal report, sample one. Please do not share with this outside of the class, but I will share the appraisal report. And I'll put that in on the, just a minute, on the chat room right now in 1 second. While I'm getting this, any question, comments? Okay, I attach you a sample of appraisal report and what it looks like on the chat room. And I know this doesn't really apply too much to your market, but it's always good to know about appraisal. And if you are disputing the appraiser's appraisal report, but you need to make sure you give the right reason. You just can't say, I don't agree with you. You need to submit new information, submit newer comparables. Those are things you need to do to prove that you're right and not the appraiser. Most of appraisers are nice enough. If you dispute it, they'll let you, at least they'll accept your opinion on it, but not necessarily that they're going to change. It's very, very rare case the appraiser changed their mind and they change it according to how you want it. Very rare. Maybe in my lifetime, maybe I had maybe 10 appraisers or so that we put it in dispute. Out of that, I think only one that I can remember was changed, was favorable to my buyer. What is an approval waiver? Sometimes you're able to approve. The bank gives a waiver on appraisal, but usually what happens is when you are putting a down payment, which is over about 25 to 30% of the purchase price, then usually the appraisal is waived because bank is confident that if they're able, 20, 30% of the buyer's money is in there, that if they have to foreclose the homes to get the house back, they're confident that they will not lose money by doing so. So that's the one thing about appraisal waiver. I don't want to talk about the VA appraisal. And if you want to talk about the start pricing homes with confidence, this is another PSA. This is NAR certification class, but I haven't quite felt that this was a appropriate class for Cambodia yet. That helps because it's very, very difficult, because Cambodia being most of the time open listing versus in the United States, which is exclusive listing as well. But there are other designation that's out there as well. And what type of class you want to tell your association, see, and they'll connect with Yoshi, and Yoshi can help you to manage or to find the right classes for Cambodia. Home inspection. Home inspection usually are done front when we go under contract. Like I said, Washington State, default is 10 days. But if you want offer to be favorable, sometimes we make it 2 days, 3-day contingency on financing. But you have to, when you do that, you have to remember that you are not, sorry, I lost my train of thought. You have to remember the inspection is for buyer to do. And like I said, I always encourage buyer to do inspection, because what seller found on the seller sometimes do inspection to get the house ready. That could be that, let's say they did that on summertime. Well, when the buyer's ready to buy, maybe it's a winter time and it's raining or snowing. They might be in a different situations where you might have to. That's why I like to have a buyer do inspection if it's possible. With a home inspection outcome, can buyer cancel if not satisfactory? Yes. My client loses if they request too many repairs? Potentially, yes. Because seller says, no, I don't want to do 20 repairs that you're requesting. That's ridiculous. That's not a repair. That's an upgrade. So potentially, yeah, you could lose the transaction if you ask too much on the inspection. And you want to consider this when you're in a multiple offer situation, you're competing with the offer. Even though I don't advise it, some buyers decide to waive their inspection because house is almost brand new. I don't think we'll have any issues. So I want to waive inspection, and it goes away. It happens. So you just never know. And other things that I'm going to do right now is this. Again, I'm going to go through one more inspection step before we get into the insurance. What I do again here is, oops, sorry. I am going to load the sample inspection report, what the inspection report looks like. There we go. That's what inspection looks like in the United States. It's all different setting because and appraiser, both appraiser and the inspector in state of Washington requires to get licensed in state of Washington. In appraiser, most of the state, I think almost all the state, you need to get licensed. Inspector, some of the state, you don't have to get licensed, but in our state, we have to get licensed in order to do an inspection. Property insurance should verify during due diligence. Is property insurance expensive in Cambodia? How is that?
They don't use insurance. It's rare.
No insurance?
No, people usually they don't buy insurance, not even for cars. It's very rare.
Very rare, huh? For almost any country.
They used to, me, I purchased insurance for house and for car, but the problem that not even after a year, I tried to reach the company again, and they disappear.
Oh,
There wasn't.
so there's not a regulations or government doesn't regulate insurance.
No, there is no regulation about insurance in Cambodia.
Okay, that's the reason why people don't get insurance.
90%, even more than 90% of the population doesn't have insurance.
Yeah. So that's different than almost any other country that I know of.
But if you do mortgage, it's compulsory by the bank to have insurance on the property.
Right. If you get a mortgage. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Because
if you are a private owners, you have house, you have property, it's not required, so you have the option buy or not buy. So people opt to not buy the insurance because it's not cheap. I think comparing to other country in Western, I think the more or less the same price. Yeah, because insurance is international product, so more or less it's same price. Yeah.
Yeah, property insurance in the United States, it all depends on what type. Of course, insurance you can't really give an average because it depends on how much protection you want. But usually about 0.5, no more than 0.5%.
Yes, right. I think in Cambodia, on my property itself, because I have mortgage at the bank, they charge 0.2% for the basic fire. So if you if you opt to buy additional per real like flood, anything else of windstorms and so, you have to add up the rate. Yeah.
Yeah, usually United States is between 0.1 to 0.2%. Usually.
Yeah, right.
Your fire insurance, but usually the flood insurance and also earthquake insurance, and in our area, especially United States, is extra. And depends on what type of natural disaster you get all the time. Since I'm on the west coast of United States where we get earthquakes here and there. So yes, earthquake insurance, but it's very expensive. So a lot of people are opting not to buy earthquake insurance because it's very expensive.
Right.
Matt, is it an obligation to have insurance before you buy?
No.
No at all.
But if you have a loan, like I said, just like the saying said, if you're borrowing money, the bank is going to require to have insurance.
In Canada, Quebec, especially the province of Quebec, they absolutely, you need before to buy a house to prove that you have insurance. Even for cars, when you buy your car, when you bring the car out, you need to prove that you have insurance. You can drive.
And car insurance in the United States, almost every state that I know of requires insurance to cover when you get into accident, to cover the other side, not you, but the other side.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It's all different. But that's interesting to see. Yeah. Even in the United States, even cash buyers, I have not yet to meet people say, I don't want to get home insurance. Because, cost of replacing is very expensive in the United States. Unless you're very wealthy and you have enough money to do anything. Other than that,
okay. So you said any province in the United States don't have the obligation to have insurance when they purchase a house.
I don't think there's an obligation. No.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, but if you're borrowing money, bank will make you borrow
because the bank want to protect themselves. That's normal.
Yeah, that is correct. Absolutely. Like lately. There's so many forest fire, like in California. Some places, insurance company, rather than say, I'm not going to insure you, they get out of the business from the certain states because they lose money. So they say, no, I'm not going to insure. Like big companies like Farmers Insurance, they say, you know what? We're not going to insure houses in California anymore because we lose money every year because so much forest fire. So there are places in California, maybe this is kind of interesting thought on it, is like in California, some Northern California, house prices are very cheap. Why? Because you cannot get insurance. So what does that mean is you cannot borrow money. So only people who has a cash is able to buy. And you also have a risk in the fire danger places that your house might burn down. And if you don't have insurance, it'll cost lots of money. So there are areas in California where the house prices are relatively cheaper than what it needs to be because you have a very, very hard time selling because you can't get insurance. So a lot of people say, if you can't get insurance, I cannot get mortgage loan, or I don't want to take the risk. What happens if the house burns down with a forest fire and things like that as well? So that's property insurance. And other common things is this is almost not a mandatory, but it's 99%. Any buyer wanted is the seller pays is called title insurance. We'll talk about title insurance coming up. I think if it's not there, we'll talk about title insurance. And we'll talk about flood insurance. United States government makes a map, say if you belong to a certain area that you need to get a flood insurance. And they do have a flood insurance program as well, that you have to buy flood insurance if you're borrowing money, or bank will not loan you again.
So, Max, the location of the property require different kind of perils or insurance required.
Yeah, only the flood one. Requirement is only flood insurance.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's only when you're borrowing money.
For a flood-prone area or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Like very near the ocean, very near the river, that always flood. Anytime there's a storm, the flood and things like that. Yeah, they require insurance, and flood insurance is not cheap. It's very expensive. So you sometimes, you really have to consider, this is one of those things. The house might be good price, but some buyer might not be able to afford insurance, right? That's why a lot of times there's an insurance contingency to make sure the buyer is able to pay insurance. So remember, almost all the insurance covers forward, right? When you get an insurance and cover that something might happen. But there's one insurance in real estate in the United States that's different. It is called title insurance. Title insurance, policyholder from loses resulting from the defects in the title. Title meaning that, let's say there's a lien or there's some cloud in the ownership. So basically, the title insurance is the only insurance that covers backwards. Seller always gets the title insurance. And almost every buyer requests it and requires it. So it's almost a requirement. And that they will get a title insurance to make sure if something comes down on the title, maybe somebody puts a lien on the house, those things are all protected by insurance. So title insurance gets involved during the closing, and they will insure the property. Unless the title insurance insures the property, usually the transaction will not move forward because there's issues on owning a clean title. In other words, clean registry. There might be something owed that they didn't pay or something like that. Or maybe there is a dispute with a neighbor on where the property line is and things like that. Could be issues on title. But title insurance is the one that covers backwards. But this might not be familiar with many countries in the world. But I understand that US is the only place that really have a title insurance. I know that some parts of Canada beginning to adopt it, but most of the country do not have a title insurance per se.
You mean it's the title deed, the title deed of the property, right?
Right.
That's what you mean? Okay, so
not a physical property. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so how come you need that kind of title insurance? Because in the US, the law is very strict and everything is registered under the...
Yeah, but sometimes, let's say...
it should not happen such a case.
So I'll give you some example, okay? Yeah. So Sang is buying Mark's property. Okay? Mark's properties, I have been in dispute with a neighbor on where the property line is. And maybe it's a lawsuit. And that has not been resolved. Right? And then I trying to sell the property, and title insurance will make sure you mute it if you're not speaking. Title insurance company will look at it and says, hey, there's a dispute over here. So you're not a clean title, because if in case of dispute, your size of the property could change. Then they might not insure it. Or let's say, I borrow money and I put, against my house that I have. But that might not even show up on the title when we try to sell, because there's a delay, they didn't put it on yet. So suddenly Sang buys the property. 3 days later, there's a lien on your property saying the property is on hold, because Mark owes $100,000 that they need to pay back. But saying you'll be covered if you have a title insurance, and title insurance company will take the blame for it, because they do the due diligence as well. So that's very different insurance. Nothing physical about the property, but it's about the title and the ownership. So that's what title insurance is. Might be very, very different, and maybe it's a new concept. Only reason that in the United States is, United States law is very strict to a certain extent, but as you know, in the United States, we like to sue each other. We like lawsuits. That's why, to protect us from that as well. Not that we like lawsuits, but a lot of people like, sue each other. We don't try to work out with the neighbors or somebody like some of our countries that I know of, So that's the way it is. But it's a business, part of the business life, That's title insurance. So that might be something different that you don't have. Pre-closing walkthrough. Before we get to pre-closing walkthrough, why don't we take our break right now? I think it's a good time to take a break. It's a few minutes early, but we'll come back right about 10 o'clock. And we'll get started again to finish the rest of this chapter, and we move forward for the other one. All right, let's take our break. I'm going to step away a little bit, and I'll come back if you have any questions, but we should have plenty of time to answer questions as well. So let's take our 10-minute break. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Everybody's okay so far?
Yes, okay.
Okay. All right, let's continue. Pre-closing walkthrough. This is, to me, is always a must things that buyer and the buyer agent have to do. Before we close the transaction, if you have a chance, I think there's any country, you want to walk through the house that you purchased so that it's in the same condition as you agreed on. Sometimes many things that happens in the United States, when you do the pre-walkthrough, let's go through it. Most contracts entitle buyer to inspect the home shortly before closing. Buyer should do so personally. Condition of the home is the same. Is seller vacated? Is seller moved out? Or repairs completed? If you agreed on doing certain repairs, is it completed? If major problems, buyer can ask for the delay of closing to make sure the house in the same condition. Buyer agent should not do the walkthrough for their buyer. But I do, even though they tell you not to do it. It's always you want the buyer to make sure to do it, but sometimes it's not allowed. But minimally speaking, buyer agent, you should walk through the house and the house condition is the same. Now, one of the common things that happen is on the contract, the seller agreed to leave a refrigerator in the kitchen. But when you go to the house, refrigerator is gone. They took it with them with other stuff. Even though contract said you have to leave a refrigerator. Taking a refrigerator is the most commonly things that happens. Or sometimes curtains. You cannot take the curtains if it's attached. You cannot take a curtains unless you let the buyer know and buyer agrees on. You have to, if there was a window covering, whether it's a blind or curtain, if it's there, you have to leave it as well. So pre-closing walkthrough, I think is a very, very, very important, because as an agent, we could avoid problems after your buyer moves in. Because you don't want to give a last impression to your client on the transaction that you had a problem, because that's all they're going to remember about what you did or what you did not do. So you want to make sure you do a pre-closing walkthrough. And prepare buyer for closing. And I don't know how the closing process is in Cambodia. I'm going to ask you in a minute. In the United States, like depends on which state it is. Usually buyer goes in to the escrow office, and as escrow signs all the loan documents for the lender and other required documents, and they collect the money for the purchase of the house, whether money is coming from the bank or person. And also the escrow company will go to the seller. Seller will come and sign with escrow, and escrow take care of all the closing and all the documents. And to signing documents, when the loan document's very, very thick. So it might be a good idea for buyer agent to be there. You're not supposed to give a legal advice, but it's okay to be there, especially when they're a first-time home buyer. Every person who's going to be buying the house needs to be there to sign paperwork. Same thing as a seller side. Every person who's selling has to be there to sign paperwork. Right now, we could do a lot of remote signing and things like that as well. So time changed, especially after COVID. There's a remote signing, there's a Zoom signing, and there's all kinds of things that you could do now. Depends on which state it is, because it depends on state law. And in United States, we usually go in, and I say United States, in Washington state, we usually go in 2-3 days prior to closing date, and everybody sign documents. Then document goes back to the bank for the review. They okay, then they send the funds. Then the actual closing, meaning the money gets transferred and title is transferred from the seller to the buyer. So it's not the same day that they do. And like Japan and Mongolia that I know of, and several other countries, usually happens on the same day. Buyer and the seller goes in to either the bank's office or somewhere, and they meet, and usually judicial scriveners or notary will be there to sign paper and finish the contract, and buyer and seller waits there, and they go record the paperwork to the office. Name changes, they bring back the paperwork, and they shake their hands, they give the keys. So sometimes it takes all day to closing. But in US, signing documents usually take about hour and a half. And closing happens, you don't have to be around for closing date. That's when the title is transferred from the buyer to a seller to the buyer. And sometimes they agree the seller have 2 more days to move out after closing. That's all depends on how it is. Before you get to closing, you want to make sure you want to take identification. Of course, for us, is always take a copy of sales contract just in case we're missing something. And proof of homeowners insurance. And there's things that you have to take the escrow. Just depends on what they are requiring as well. How does a closing work in Cambodia, generally speaking? Does buyer and seller go to somebody's office and meet and sign paper, or how does it work?
Here in Cambodia, Matt, there's notary, but they don't do with notary. They rely usually on agent, or otherwise they go with lawyer and agent.
Okay, I see. So agent.
Sorry.
So that's the big difference. Yeah, agents do the closing, and in United States, no agent will do closing.
Exactly. Yeah. No.
And most of the country, there's somebody third party administering the closing. Usually it's a notary in many of the country. In the rest of the world, or attorneys. In US, it's either attorney or escrow are the one who's going to do the closing.
But here, people with more knowledge, they go with lawyers.
Yeah.
They go with lawyers, and they do this with fingerprint.
Sometimes it depends on the size values of the property.
Yeah.
It's a big value, so we have to go through Anthony at law, lawyers, both party of the buyers and the seller. They have their own lawyers and guided through by their agent, their buyer's agent or the seller's agent, and then they have to go to the bank with the escrow account, like what you have mentioned before, to secure both deals are secure on the money transfer, so on and so, yeah. So yeah, but if it is a small value of the property, we don't go to that complicated process because it will cost a lot of additional cost. Yeah. So we make very simple, like Gilbert said, just notary or just agent do the closing. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, usually in a lot of the countries, if the bank loan is involved, usually bank will like to do the closing. Usually, even in Japan or other countries that I have taught, most of the places, if the loan is involved, the bank will usually do closing, and bank always have somebody that could notarize signatures and so forth. But in the United States, for my liability's sake, I don't want to do closing. Remember, it's all different culture, right? Because United States, you could get sued again.
Yeah.
And I don't have a license to practice law. I mean, I am a notary. I could notarize by a U.S. notary. Is the only thing they do is they verify the signatures. They don't prepare documents. They verify the signatures of the individual. So they, Gearboat will bring his driver's license or some kind of passport and then identify it and take a copy. So I'm saying that I'm certifying that Gearboat signed this paperwork. That's all they do, but they don't prepare documents like some of the other countries, notary or judicial scriveners or, escrow, whoever it might be. So that's a, difference on each country.
But here, I think for Cambodian people, like my friend said, depend on the house. If it's usually they take lawyers because there is a title, and only to verify the legibility of the title, even if it's a hard title or soft title, whatever, they're good for this. An agent cannot do the same as the lawyers. Absolutely not.
Right. That's why in US you have the title insurance. Title company will do all that due diligence on the ownership and all that. Usually 99% of the time. I have yet to done a transaction without a title insurance.
Yep. Hello, Mark and everybody. I would like to add some condition regarding to closing the deal. Yeah. Yep. Actually, hello.
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah, we can hear you.
Can hear.
Okay. Actually, throughout my experience in here, Cambodia, I think to close the deal, both parties have solely agree on the term and the term and condition of selling and purchasing. Yeah, number one, regarding to the total amount to purchase and agree on the title transfer, whether the title is a hard title or soft title. Yeah, soft title, of course, would transfer to soft title. So it could be at the Sangkat or district level. And high title could transfer to high title, but from high title, of course, could not transfer into subtitles. Then it might agree on the period of title transfer, whether how long does it take to transfer the title deed to the other new buyer. And they will agree on the payment condition regarding to the fee. Yep, which means regarding to the housing purchase, of course, the fee it will be responsible by the seller. So it have the like admin fee, like for cadastral office to proceed the document. And tax fee, it will based on the property tax, 4% of the property based on land market value and bidding value, and the annual fee. So the property owner shall clear all those tax that they missed before as well. Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
And normally in this condition, most in the practice they go through only agent, but some owner, if the deal it costs like million, so they use people from the lawyer firm to prepare the SPA for them selling and purchasing agreement for them.
Yeah.
But to be secure on payment, I think some of the seller they also need to protect the risk, which means if the payment can agree, so they need to open escrow account, something like that. Make sure that when title transfer complete to the buyer party, the seller can automatically could withdraw the money from the bank, something. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, this
Thank
is
you very much.
Thank you.
So it's different in each country, and thank you for teaching me how it's done in Cambodia as well. But regardless of how the closing process is, I think there's more responsibility in the agents in Cambodia on the closing more than in the United States. But that's more risk practicing business as well, because you're giving the risk other than somebody else's. In United States, our job is to make sure that we have as less risk as possible, and that we spread the potential risk that we might have. So in the closing, so of course in Cambodia, your buyer might attend, your seller might attend, everybody might attend, just depends on who the buyer seller is. But in the United States, depends on which state it is. Like our state, that, like I said, buyer and seller potentially never meet on the transaction.
I see.
And preparing a legal document that gets filed to the county for the recording office, we are not able to prepare that. By law, we as a real estate agent are not able to prepare that. Only the person who has a license who could prepare those documents. It's usually the title companies or attorneys are the only one that really does it. Even then, they use attorneys. They usually still use title insurance and title company to do all that due diligence search as well, because even attorney doesn't want to take the risk on the title ownership and cleanness of title and things like that. And but closing, what to expect? You potentially could receive a key at the same time, but like in Washington State, you don't receive a key till it gets recorded, which is usually a few days after signing the document. So those things you need to let the buyer know how it works. Maybe they come from country or even different state. You get the key as soon as you sign paperwork, but it's different.
Mark, but during the title transfer, of course, they might have some risk. So the question is that how to pretend, for example, I sell my property to the buyer, and the buyer, after all my title transfer into the buyer name, then they cannot have money to pay me the rest. So how to prevent it if this thing happen?
Yeah, those things happen. That's why in the United States we use escrow.
I see.
Because escrow is not going to close the transaction until all the conditions are met. And escrow have to have all the money into escrow before they go to release the record. Because in the United States, recording is very easy. And a lot of places, like in our state, they allow digital recording. In other words, you could digitally record, online recording. And so you have to have everything completed before they record. So if everything is not there, it doesn't record. Or the escrow company said, we're not recording today because we don't have money from the buyer yet, or whatever it might be. But I don't want to here in the United States take care of that as an agent. We like the third party to do it because we have enough to take care, and there's a lot of liability for me to be handling those type of money. So that's why we use a escrow company or even attorney or escrow company in the United States.
But to answer his questions to my friend, usually in Cambodia, if something happened like this, that people, even if you have a hard title transfer, the hard title is still keeping in his hands, doesn't give it to him. Yes, it will be transferred to his name, but if you do his due diligence with lawyer or his agent, they will put a clause. He's supposed to have a clause that if he doesn't pay and everything, he can get back the house right away, no problem, and he will lose the money.
There's always a way to protect it, but that's one thing that
100%. If they do a good diligence before with lawyers and the agent, if they know about law, there's no problem.
Right. That due diligence is the most important part on any part of the transaction, right?
100%.
You need to verify. Do you need to do as an agent due diligence for your buyer or the seller, or either way, or due diligence to each other or the property or whatever it might be.
Even if it's friend, anybody, you need to do the paper good, very good. You need to.
So for me, is like in United States, like myself, I do not do a real estate transaction with my family and friends. I do not. I don't. That's my policy, my own personal policy.
Yes, usually
because sometimes friendship and family relationship gets in the way, because I like to treat it as a business, as a professional, and that's why I don't do it. I mean, if my relative wants to buy or sell, I do a referral to some other agent. They could take care of it, but I still could be advisor to my family as well, and I still receive a referral fee. Because sometimes real estate transaction, you can break friendship, or family gets mad at each other for something. So, but that's me.
This is why it was just an example. It's just not personal, but it was an example to tell people that even if it's friend, family, you need to have everything done on paper.
Right. Everything needs to be, and sometimes it's harder, right?
Yeah, but because you don't. The way it is, business is business. You have no choice.
Yeah. That's what you need to do. That's why you really need to be careful, especially on the country. It's a great part of our country, like Cambodia. where everybody's friendly and trustworthy and so forth. But since if you don't do the right due diligence, you could get hurt more because there's no legal protection, or it's not a way to do it like in the United States. Right? So anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Then after closing, even due diligence, moving forward. Help buyer compile a file of all the documents. I usually keep all the documents that I have and I hold it for them. Even though they have it already, I put it in the package and I give to the buyer after they finish the house. That way they have it in one place. It's usually right now, we send it in an email format in a PDF or the purchase and sales agreement or whatever the documents that I have. So they could keep it in the file. And the title company will email them and they'll send them the deed or the ownership or the title as well. But in the United States, like some other country, having the actual physical paperwork of title is not important in the United States. It's because you could get it from the recording office and we usually do. So it's not like a car that you have a paperwork saying that you own it. You could have it, but that's not really a necessity in the United States because you always go through a title company to get your title and verify title insurance. So usually ownership is verified that way rather than the paperwork. Right? And after closing, might show appreciation with a personalized gift to client or their new home. Just depends on what their client's needs and wants are. But one thing you want to do is your closing gift should be part of something memorable and something that leads to your marketing, future marketing. Because everything you do, remember, we're building the business to get a referral and build a trust relationship. So a lot of times they'll give a gift that's memorable that they will keep. So every time they see certain things that they remember what came from you, just to remind them that you helped them, that you're in the real estate business. So that's something that if you're going to give a gift, I mean, it's good to always remember the gift that's memorable, or maybe it's not disposable, meaning it's okay to give some kind of, candy or, pastries or whatever, but that could be all gone. And after that, they might forget about you. So you want to do something that's going to be memorable to you, about you as well. And some of the gift I might give is called home warranty. Home warranty is usually in the United States about $500 to $600. Seems like that's very expensive, but among the commission that we're making, those are the give you a 1 year home warranty that a lot of the components, especially on the older homes, like water heaters, furnace, range oven and things like that they bought are protected for 1 year. So that's sometimes we do give that as a gift. So that gives a little bit more assurance on a buyer that, something goes wrong, that they don't have to put a lot of money out to fix it either. A few thoughts. One thing, you always want to change the keys. Because you don't know how many people has a key to your house. Maybe these are for some of the closing gifts. Dinner delivering on the moving date, landscaping gift certificate, safety items if needed, rekeying the lock. But these are things that rekeying the lock is definitely, if you're not going to do that for your buyer, you need to advise your buyer to do it right away. If it's anything, that's the first thing you want to do.
So back, so it is very practical for the agent to buy to give the gift to the home, the new homeowners.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here I think I don't know other people, but by my notice, I don't see agent doing such a very good thing, I think.
Yeah.
It's
yeah,
kind of nice gesture to get a future referral. And we never think of such a thing. We get the money and we just keep in touch. We don't buy stuff for the homeowners.
It all depends, but I don't think there's anywhere in the world that if you give some gift that they don't appreciate. you usually, if they appreciate it. That's a good impression to do, especially in the United States. Why referral is important and return business is important is in the United States for the home, people usually buy right now, every 7-10 years, they buy a new home, they move. So I have clients who are 3 generations I take care of, not just 2. I started with a grandmother and I take care of grandkids. I have one that was almost coming up that great grandkids will be buying the home soon in about 3 years. So just give a good impression. That's where referral and return business comes. That's the one thing about US is people, even they're not an investor, they buy home at least every 5 to 10 years, somewhere right around there. So some people, I've been doing this for 23 years, for their own home, not investment property. I have some clients that they're in the 4th house. So because they move about every 5 years, they move to bigger house because they have more kids and they got more money, good jobs. They want better house. Then all the kids is gone. They went to college, they went work, marry. So they want a smaller house and so forth. So there's a cycle. It is. And that's why, it's maybe a lot more different than many of the countries where the people only buy once or twice in their lifetime for their own home. Investors are different. So it might be different, but for me is all my marketing starts when the transaction is over. So right now, my business right now is about 95% referral business.
Yeah.
Either referral from my past clients or past clients coming back or referral from other agents that I meet, like teaching class or taking class or with associations, volunteer work. So only about 5% of my business is brand new. Maybe it's even less than 5%. If I look at it this year, so far, out of 40 transactions that I did this year so far, I only had one new client that was not attached to referral or returning client, only one. So every year I might have 1 or 2 because they saw a sign on the yard or something. So, but that's different in each country, how you have to market yourself, because the structure and how often people buy is different as well. But these are, I think, some type of the gift might be really good. Even small gift, it doesn't have to be the money. No, like you could take like a dinner delivered to home when they move to new home, when they don't have any furniture yet. Like US, it's very popular that like real estate agent will take a pizza and beer to people they're moving that day. I try not to go there on the moving day because I don't want to help move. So I don't go on the moving day. Usually my closing gift usually happens about 2 weeks after they move in. So that way I could go up and check on them and see how they're doing. Then I bring my gift.
Matt, I have a good experience here with Cambodian people because when I sell a house, I give a gift to the people painting and I get a really good feedback. They invite me a weekend to the country house and they love my work and everything. It was very good appreciations. Feels good.
Yeah. And giving a gift is good last impression to leave, right? Always is. And I'm not saying we make a lot of money, but the little gift is not going to hurt. If you get one more transaction, if you think like a business, you get one more transaction from that client because you give a good last impression, it's worth it.
Yes, because this client that I have, we become friends. And then I knew a lot of people from him too. So it's good. Very, very, very good. Very good feelings.
That's about, not just a buyer, but it's about marketing yourself as well. One way that it depends on how the market is different in US and in other country or Cambodia. But I think that we're still dealing with the people, right? Everywhere we go in the world, we are dealing with the people. Different culture, but we're still dealing with people. So I have yet to go to the country where people don't like gift. there are certain things that you don't give because of the culture, right? But there's some kind of, I don't have yet to meet people who don't appreciate gift. But anyway, that's something to think about.
Hello, Mark. I have one question.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Regarding the referral, whether the owner is eligible to receive the referral fee, or could be like the referral from the overseas. So like people want to buy home there in US, and we refer to you or anyone with the real estate license. So whether the referral fee happen during that or
yes, I pay many referral fees to oversee clients or oversee agents and partners that I have. Yes, I pay referral.
How about the owner? Like the owner bring the owner, the buyer bring the buyers.
In United States, I cannot give a referral fee to the non-licensee.
Okay.
So that's illegal.
That's illegal.
That's illegal. So there's a way to do it. You give a gift, say thank you, but you cannot give money.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. In United States, I don't know about rest of the country, rest of the world, but in United States, you can only give a referral to a real estate licensee. And you got to remember about clients' data privacy, because in my state, I have to keep all my documents related to the transaction for minimum 7 years. In our office, have called paperless pipeline, which is basically online, web-based storage that we have to put everything in there that they have to keep for minimum 7 years. And make sure those are protected. And those are the things that I talk to my buyers. So your information about who bought it or what happened during the transaction it's a privacy. Data privacy is very, very important anywhere in the world right now. So it's very always make sure whatever your office policy is, you follow them, and you explain to the buyer on the policy as well.
So is it the client's data? Is it a form of papers, or it could be a digital? Data?
Ours is all digital.
All digital. Okay.
Yeah, if it's not digital, we digitize it.
Okay. So it is compulsory by law to keep the client's data for 7 years.
7 for us. Yeah, in the state of Washington.
What is that for? Is it there is an audit from the states to, if we have
not just that, but in case that there's some legal issues in the future. So we have all the documents. So we have to keep for 7 years.
Okay.
It's different law for different states. But our state is 7 years from closing. We even have to keep the files. The offer did not go through. Every time we write contract, we have to keep it for 7 years. So I have to turn everything into our office through a digital system that we have in a cloud, so to speak, cloud storage.
Yeah, in my country, it's like 5 years.
Mm-hmm. It's all different in each country or the state or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah. And one thing that we really have to do is remember about wire fraud. There's a lot of wire fraud that happens everywhere in the world. You think you're sending money to certain places, but actually not. So that's a very, very big concern. And you tell, before they send a wire, usually how the wire fraud happens in real estate is, escrow company gives a wire instruction. It's usually through the secure system, so no one else knows. And the buyer is supposed to be wiring the money to buy to the escrow through that wiring. All suddenly they receive an email of the middle of the night, or sometimes says, hey, our wiring account changed, so please wire money to this account instead. And it looks like it came from the escrow company, but it's not. It's third party. And sometimes I say, oh, okay. So they wired to the wrong places. We had a case in our office where the buyer Even though we told them don't do it, husband saw an email in late evening and to change the wire to different places. So he wired the funds to different places and he lost $300,000. And we were able to recover about $150,000 of it. But it's always in the United States, everywhere in the world, be careful about wiring. Wiring instruction will be coming from whoever you're supposed to be wiring from. And I always told them that you will need to call them and confirm if they changed the wiring instruction that they changed it. 99% of the time, they don't change it. Escrow doesn't keep changing bank accounts on the wiring. So be careful on this one. This is throughout the world right now, right?
So, question. So for wire fraud, because you said the estate company in the US, they have the right to receive the money in trust from the client. So if that wire fraud happened before the money come into the estate account, the company's account, it's the client's responsibility. It's not the estate.
Yes. That's not real estate. But
what happened if what happened if the hackers hacked to the email and using the email to
that's what they do.
Writing
That's
the email to the client. So is it a company responsibility? I mean
no, but what it is this.
Because
in United States,
that's your email. That's your email.
Yeah, just a minute, Sang.
Yeah.
By United States, who's going to prove that whose fault it is? The court is. So you are going to get sued. You might not be responsible at the end, but you might be named on the lawsuit. You will be, I could guarantee you, if you're a real estate agent. Even though you might not fault, the purpose of a lawsuit is to recover money. So they're going to sue everybody and see who could pay. You don't want to be part of the lawsuit. And lawsuit in the United States is a public record. So if you're involved in a lawsuit, your client could Google you and put Mark Kitabayashi name on there, boom, comes up that I'm in lawsuit. That's about the worst marketing you could do. Even though you didn't do anything wrong. Now, if you're the buyer says, maybe I want to work with Mark, but I want to check Mark and do a Google search, and Mark comes up with all these lawsuits, you think you want to work with me? Answer is no.
Yeah.
I'm going to go find somebody else, even though I might win on every single case. Yeah. That's why protecting our business, especially in the United States, is a whole lot different level than in most of the countries in the world. Because we are real estate, even though we have a more strict law, but real estates are traded freely in the United States with not too much restriction with the foreigners or anything. US is one of the least restricted place to invest in the entire world for foreigners as well. So
holds the client money in trust is another risk. So that's why in Cambodia we prefer to the buyers pay directly to the seller without the money in trust under the hands of the agents. It's because there's risk. Yeah,
that's one thing, Yeah. But not all the agents are good. Not all everybody's good. It could be a problem anywhere, right? Any country. So that's why wire fraud is a very, very big issue, because you see all these scams right through internet and in different type, not just the real estate. And these scams exist. Why? Because it works. People buy into it and they spend money. So just to be careful. This is all the message to the entire world as well. So that was one of the goal about cryptocurrencies, is more secure and this and that. But right now, not too many countries you could use a cryptocurrency like the regular money. You still have to convert it. Then that's a risk there. It's like any exchange rate, right? It could be worth a lot of money today and tomorrow it could be zero. We don't know. It's like a stock. So maybe in the future, there are some countries in like Central America and so forth, certain cryptocurrency is like official money to some countries, but still, I think we were a little bit far from that as well. I think in the United States, I think there's only been 10 transactions that was done cryptocurrencies to cryptocurrencies. It never been exchanged. Now, there's buyer pay with the cryptocurrencies and seller kept it as a cryptocurrency rather than exchanging to a dollar. So it's very rare still. Maybe it's a lot more used in some other countries, but not in the United States yet. All right, key points for review for module 5. Contract. The only thing is it's you know, the best thing to learn about buyer agents agreement, ABR is communication. You need to communicate with your buyer very closely. That's even seller too, but buyer especially. That way you are able to help them a lot more, because buyers trying to buy, they are spending, remember, a lot of money to buy a house. I don't care which country it is or how rich you are, you're spending a lot of money to buy. So you have to be very, very careful when it comes to that as well, right?
You know, Matt, here in Cambodia, this is the big problem about communication. When they get to customers, most of agents, they go to customers and they don't follow up. Usually they should follow up more, much more than what they do, because here I see many times companies that I work with, they need skill about this and to be more accurate about the customers.
So,
because when they
I'll give you a good tip. I give you a weekly report to any buyer that I have a buyer agency agreement with, or the seller. One time a week I contact them and I ask them when would they like to be contacted and how they want to be contacted. Some people say, Mark, just send me an email. Somebody says, just call me or come and visit me, whatever it is. I try to do the way they want. And once a week, I talk to my client, minimum, even though nothing is happening. Once a week, I check in.
But I'm talking about when people have a house to sell.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
They give the lead to an agent, but the problem, they put it on social media, and they wait that somebody come to be interested. But this is not the way it's supposed to work. And they leave the buyers, the sellers, without notice, with a long time, months, 1 month, 2 months.
Yeah, so I understand that. That's why
this is very wrong.
Yeah, that's not the right way to do any type of business. It doesn't matter just the real estate or not. Remember, one thing that you have to remember, guys, real estate is a people-to-people business. Okay? Social media, emails, Telegram, or whatever you guys might use to market and everything else, that's just a tool. That's not real estate. Real estate is people to business. I don't care which country you're in. Real estate is a people-to-people business, and you are dealing with the most prized possession that people have, or most expensive purchase that they're going to have. So you need to treat it that way. Then it goes back to golden rules. If you want to be treated, you need to treat it like how you want to be treated. You need to treat others like how you want to be treated. What happens if you're a buyer, if you're a seller, your real estate agent never contacts you? Think about that. Think about how often would you like your real estate agent to contact you, update you? At least minimally do that, right? You have to practice what you preach, you say, right? So, putting all together, we'll start a little bit on module 6 before we take our break. This is kind of like an all review for what we learned today. Strategies. Know your strengths and weakness. Remember we did the SWOT on the day 1? You got to know your strengths and weaknesses. And know your duties and responsibility. Maybe it's by law, and maybe it's not in some of the countries or Cambodia. But what do you think your duty is as a buyer's agent? Your buyer agent's duty is to represent your buyer to the best of your ability. And your best of ability is not the standard, that you need to get better. And you always, real estate market is revolving and evolving. You always need to educate yourself to get better, right? And know your competition. Who are you competing with? And why are they winning? You need to study that. That you need to figure out the way. Remember, we talk about the way that you need to stand out. United States, we said it, just the realtors, only about 70% of the licensee, but we have a 1.55 million members. So I have a 1.55 million competitors. How am I different? How am I going to compete with Seng or Gilbert or Par or Ram or me or whoever it is? I'm not saying to knock them down, but you have to make sure you stand out. And remember, we talk about the value proposition, right? What is your value? Why are you more better, or what is your value different than the other people? That's what it's going to make you stand out. That's the important part. Oops. Avoid for client to find them the right home at the right price. That's the ultimate goal as a buyer broker, right? Comply with all federal, state, and local laws. That's the same thing in any countries. If there's a law regarding agency, you must follow it, or licensing law that you might have. Watch for risky area of the screening, steering, advertising, predatory lending, and all these. You have to watch for it. Make sure you become a proponent to avoid those things and not do these things as well. And understand the real estate law or zoning law or requirements for each country, each state, or each city. That's one of our duties. For us to know the law, at least on the real estate. We're not attorneys, so we don't have to know all the laws, but at least on the real estate, we should know. And you become a skilled negotiator, right? Patient, but persistent. Organized and innovative. Put a structure in. Aware of the others' emotions and situations, right? Remember, when people are buying home and selling home, they're very emotional already. So you don't want to be emotional with them. Best policy, honest and prepared. Aware of a legal accountability. Flexible and open to suggestions. You have to be flexible. It depends buyer situation, seller's situation, especially in this case, buyer situation could be different or they could change. Assertive without being demanding. I had a client that always questioning my integrity, whether I'm honest or not, whether I'm coercing with the listing agent to try to sell her something. And I told her that I'm not, and my duty in the state of Washington, when I'm representing a buyer, I have a fiduciary duty to represent you and not to reveal anything private until you tell me to tell the other side. I keep reminding her that, but she keeps questioning my integrity. You know what I did? I fired her. I cannot work with a buyer who does not trust me, because if I'm doing something wrong, if she points it out, I understand, but there was not. She keeps questioning me every time we want Miss Mark. Are you sure you're not telling the other party? Are you sure? I said, I told you, I represent you, but I said, if you bring up one more time, I believe seems like you don't trust me. If you don't have a trust relationship, it's going to be very, very difficult for me to work with you. So you might want to find somebody that you trust better. I always tell that to my buyer. Trust is very important, right? Because it's a people-to-people business. And if I don't think I'm earning the respect or the trust, and my integrity is being attacked, my integrity is, for me, is always, always important than the one commission that I'm going to get. You always look for win-win without compromising your client's position. Yes, one of our goals is to make sure that it's a win-win for the seller and the buyer, but not by giving up your buyer's position. You don't force buyer to buy. And on page 171, it's a troubleshooting script for the field. Real estate are complex and dynamic. Difficult situation are part of the business, right? Real estate is not an easy business because you're dealing with the property and you're dealing with the people and many, many different people. And not every transaction, no transaction are the same. Every transaction is different. You might have a same buyer, seller. It could be different because of the property might be different. You might have a same buyer, or you might have a same property, but it could be different. We prepare and know constructive way to respond when there's a troubleshooting that happens. And the more experience you get, you understand what kind of trouble that always comes up. All right, so right now, I think the best time to take our last break, 10:51 right now. So let's come back right around 11 o'clock and we finish up. We'll have about 10 minutes. I'm going to step. All right, everyone, let's get back and let's get started and we'll finish it up. We're almost there. When the buyer doesn't want initial counseling session, I usually, if the buyer says, I don't want initial counseling session, that gives me a red flag in the United States. What it means is that the buyer is not that serious or they not really want to work with you. Scenario one could say, I can find all the properties on the internet. I really don't need you. Counseling session, I just need you to get me into the door. If every agent has access to MLS, that's in US, right? What is the advantage of working with you? That's the question that might be asking United States. When everybody has all the same information, why should I work with you? Why not with Gilbert? Or why not with Hoare or whoever it is? Sorry, Gilbert, I keep using name in vain. So don't feel bad. And, scenario three, I know what I want already. I just need you to get me showings. Only value that you have is so that you could get me into the door to see the house. I already need what I want. These might be some of the objection, but to me is the way that I look at it is if they don't, when buyer won't sign a representation agreement, what's saying, I would like for you to work for me, but I don't want to sign anything. I can't trust you yet. I don't like to make a commitment to just one per agent. I like to keep my options open, which could be true. And, open listing market that you might have like in Cambodia. The sales agent who shows me properties seems nice. So why do I need to buy buyer's rep? I'm a commitment phobia. I don't like make a commitment. If I don't like working with you, can I get out of this contract? If I sign out? Answer is yes. I have never let people not go away if they decide not to work with me. When the buyer asks about offers, commission, and fees, I want to find a really good deal. What can you do for me? Remember, don't give up your commission easily because it's never coming back. The market is kind of confusing right now. How will you help me decide how much to offer? Is your commission negotiable? It is by law, but for me, it's not. Do I have to pay a fee if I don't not buy a home? Just depends on what kind of agreement you have. If your commission is based on the sales price, how can I be sure you will try to get me the best deal instead of having high houses? This is where the trust relationship comes in. If they're not trusting you, they're going to ask this type of question. When dealing with for sale by owner, if seller can go for sale by owner, why can I make purchase on my own? If you don't need my help, I say go for it. But it's not just about showing the house, it's about contract and everything else that I help you with. A client of yours is interested in looking up for sale by owner and ask you to check out any local listings. How do you approach sellers in the various situations? It's the same thing. It's not that big a deal. I approach them just like I approach anybody else. Remember, agency disclosure brokerage fee agreement for unlisted properties. This is just a sample. What does that look like? Remember, we went over the property comparison worksheet, right? Again, safety is one of the most important things. No commission's worth you're dying for or being hurt. So be careful, especially when you're meeting with people with the first time. And maybe not in your countries, but US, the safety is very, very important. That's why I try to have a buyer orientation before I meet somebody at the property. Follow your instinct, right? Have a safety plan. We talk some of it. You know, do not walk. If it's a vacant house that's empty, you always want to be closer to the door. In US, you don't park on the driveway, so your car's not blocked. Technology. Technology has altered the real estate landscape. Some ways more challenges, but easier in many other ways. You know, we have electronic signature that we use in the United States. So you don't have to get buyer signatures wet. We do everything electronic online. Now you can work faster and more efficiently. It's the most used tools. Remember, the key word is tools. Technology is not a real estate. It's just a tool. Technology helps manage time, customer relations management, CRMs. You know, there's an automatic way to send emails out each month, each week, or newsletter, or whatever it might be, how to maintain your customer relationship. Check and see what kind of CRM is available for you might be working for some company, a large franchise company, maybe like Century 21, ERA, another country, they might have that already built into their system. But it's always, always good to have a CRM, online CRM system to manage your client. Just sending a happy birthday card or sending a happy birthday email could help. Best way to maintain customer relationship is to be nice to their kids if they have kids. Kids remember you more than anything else. Kids remember you is not expensive either. Right? Many, many of my clients, some of my clients, I send a birthday card, a little birthday, box of chocolate to their kids, and they're so happy, and they remember me all the time. And they remember my car. So when they drove by my office, my client says, hey, Mark, my son wants to say hello to you. Are you in the office? My son said, you're in the office because he saw your car. I said, yeah, I'm in the office. That's the best marketing tools you have. You don't want to treat them like a tool, but it is a good way to market. social media strength your businesses. 70% of NER members use social media for businesses. Probably strongest leads. Most use Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram are the top three for NER members to use, and it's different in each country. Facebook, I use it to just say that I'm still alive. And most of my Facebook, I don't post a lot of things real estate. I just post dinner that I eat. But that gives a message that I'm still alive, I'm still eating. That's all I'm using for social media. Everybody has a different strategy on how to use social media. In the United States, buyer age 30 and under grew up with social media, right? Even anywhere in the world. Now account for 82% of first-time buyer is under 30. All buyers expect to connect with you online. Most of them, if they do online. But you want to have a consistent message throughout the different platform that you might use. That's the module 6. You need the big part to take away. You need to assess yourself and truly need to figure out game plans. That's including how you're going to work with your buyer, whether you're going to use a buyer agency agreement, all that. You have to make that determination. No one else is going to do it for you. You have to do that. Game plan meaning, unique value proposition pays off for your business. Be prepared. Preparation help you respond effective to common clients' concerns. You have a systematic way of doing things. Then when you're asked outside of the system question, you have a lot easier to deal with rather than you keep doing without the plan. Right? Just like when we talk, I'll give an example, medical doctor. Medical doctor has a plan. When doing the operation, they go step by step. In case something happens during surgery, they go back to it. They're just going to say, okay, let's try to open here and see what we find. Or maybe we'll open over here and see what's wrong with it. You don't do that. Doctor has an exact plan how they're going to do things. In the real estate, we could do that to a certain extent. Client relationships are valuable resources. Remember, buyer always becomes a seller. Seller becomes a buyer as well. Buyer, the seller, has a different need. So it's always better to understand how you work as a buyer agent and how you work as a listing agent. Most likely be a little bit different because wants and needs and wants are different from the buyer and the seller. We discussed the role and responsibility of being a buyer's rep. We learned about the counseling session, the search selection showing process. We took a deep dive into assisting our buyers in that formulation and negotiation of their offers, contract. Review how to get the transaction to the closing table. Now it's your turn. But on your booklet, after chapter 6, there is a supplemental section that has lots of resources that we talked about on there. So please look through it and see what you could use for your own business as well. With that said, any question, comments? Resources of some of these are there. Glossary, websites, sample buyer agency agreement, evaluation, client negotiation position, information literacy, and those are all on there. For just a bonus module, information literacy based on 201. There are now college courses on information literacy. Information literacy is the ability for identify what information is needed. understand how the information is organized, identify the best source of the information for given need, locate these resources, evaluate the source critically and credibility. These are things that you could do for your buyer and your client, especially on the information, right? Why is information literacy important? We are surrounded by growing oceans of information in all formats. Not all information is created equal. We talk about fake news nowadays, right? Some is authenticated, authoritative, current, reliable. Some is biased, out of date, misleading, and false. The amount of information available is going to keep increasing. The type of the technology used to access, manipulate, and create information will likewise expand. And there's more to talk about information literacy. Data, collection of facts from which counseling due. Data that has been verified, that's information, knowledge, wisdom, insight. All these are part of the information that you have and which you have it on your booklet. So any questions? And what I'm going to do is, sorry that I didn't do that on this one. And as you do, ask questions, I'm going to type in my contact information in here so that you will have it. You could take a screenshot or whatever if you want to contact me for any reason. Any question, comments?
So I don't have any question or comment as we during ongoing the session we already have like something talking, question and answering already.
Good. Anybody else? What I'm going to do is I'm going to put my contact information in the chat room. Okay.
Okay.
I put my emails address in, my messenger. I use the Facebook the most.
Can I ask a question to the people? Sure. It's not to you, Matt, but the people who is online with us at the course. I would like to know if Century 21 still exists here in Cambodia.
I think so, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It still exists in Cambodia.
Yeah.
It still exists?
Yeah.
Yeah, it still exists.
Okay. Wondering because I'm asking this question because I know they went to court because they didn't pay many agents for their commission.
But remember, Century 21 is a franchise company, so it's not just a one company. It could be a multiple companies.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely.
Different owners. So Century 21 itself, I know that they still exist, right?
Yeah, because I know in Cambodia there was many issues with this company. Because of the...
I have one question.
Go ahead.
Yes, seems like we have gone through a lot of tips and techniques on how to deal with buyers. And do you mind sharing us about some important thing like the business development? I think this is challenging. Like I would like you to share like some tip regarding how we can develop new buyers. As you have already mentioned about the referral, I think it's a good thing to practice. And like how about how to develop new buyers and put them into our list? I mean, to become our referral.
I'll give you my tip to how to get new buyer is build your referral base and database. That's the most solid way to get new business is building your referral base. What does that mean is you treat your client or past client well and keep in touch with them. That's part of the CRM, customer relation management. That's the best tip, because they become your salesperson and marketing tools for you. You don't have to do that. That's my best tip. And I could tell you in the United States, it might be a little bit different. It took me about 5 years into business that I feel comfortable that every year that I'm going to make enough money to live comfortably. Because real estate is not a cheap business, as you know. It could be a very lucrative business, but more money you make, most likely your expense is going to go up. But that's part of that. But my best tip to you is build your database. You understand, build your database. You should be minimally have 100 people that you're going to be contacting on regular basis. 100. Get 100 names with email, address, phone number. You should have 100 names. And divide that into A, B, and C categories. A is one of your best clients. B is maybe, and C, the frequency of how you are in touch with them could be different. A clients, you want to take care of them really well. And B clients, you might do it maybe newsletter once a quarter or whatever. Maybe C client, maybe once a year. Like one thing that I do for my marketing is I deliver a box of chocolate in person during holiday season between in the United States Thanksgiving, which is end of November through mid-January, after New Year's. Box of chocolate to every single past client that I have that lives in the area. By person, in person, meaning I just don't put it in delivery service. I go drive there and I deliver the box of chocolate. I've been doing this for closer to almost 20 years now. 20 years, same box of chocolate. Nothing fancy, nothing expensive. Oh, it's more expensive now. It used to be about $3 a box when I started 20 years ago, but now it's about $12, same box. And there's less chocolates in the box. So per chocolate is a lot more expensive, but still, it's the same kind of box chocolate every year for 20 years. That is the best marketing that I do. I deliver about 350 boxes every year. The fact that you personally go up there and deliver is an important part. It's a person-to-person business. In US, you call door knocking or pop-bys. Pop-by means that you go and say hello to somebody without making an appointment. Seems like it's rude. If they really like you, no one's going to get mad at you. But if they're doing something, they're going to tell you, Mark, I'm sorry, why don't you come back? We're busy a little bit today. That's okay. By effort that you personally come and knock on their door to say hello is important. More technology you have, more person-to-person contact is going to be important. Take your partners or people to coffee or quick lunch or whatever, person-to-person. Especially after COVID, people are dying. Shouldn't say people are dying. That might not be the right way. People are really want to meet with you in person. So that'd be my tip. So I kind of went it long. Any other question, comments? Hopefully that helped. This goes to any business, not just the real estate, any business you have. I learned this type of sales actually working for a Japanese company before I became a real estate agent. It's called marketing and sales by foot. Using your foot to market yourself. Walk, drive, whatever you do. Don't just sit behind the desk and send out all these emails. There's a lot of mistakes. A lot of younger generations say, Mark, I'm paying this much money each month to get a lead. So, they come back to me when I'm training new agents and Mark, I got 200 leads this month. Great. How many transactions did you do? Nothing. Doesn't mean anything. You could get 200 leads, but if you're not closing transactions, it's not helping your business. Right? You need to figure out what is the best style that you could do and what your clients are looking for and do that. Anything else? Any question, comments on anything? Everybody's okay?
Yeah.
So this is
a short question, Mark.
Sure.
I think everyone have the same expectation after we finish the course. The ABR is quite a very expensive brand. So how we are entitled to use the designation after the course?
So this is what happens. Number one, you pay to take this class, right? And your association will send long as you pay, association will send a roster to NAR. And NAR will certify that you taken the class. Then they will send you, remember your email address should be there. They'll send you or your association information how to get ABR designation. Taking the class is not going to give you a designation. Will give you a certificate saying that you took the class. Then you pay one-time fee that you're able to use many resources that ABR has. And I'll ask Yoshi to make sure that they'll have a follow-up so Yoshi could help you what you could do. Remember in the beginning, we talk about what ABR offers, our own Facebook page or our own marketing material. And you could put ABR behind your business card, just like CIPS. But thing is, you have to use the ABR in order to make money. Having an ABR behind your business card is not going to make you money, guys. You need to use ABR as a marketing when you're working with a buyer says, I took a special course and I have a special designation how to work with a buyer. And this course was even coming from America. Whatever we do, you got to use it and let the buyer know what ABR is. Having your ABR, CIPS on business card, public people don't know what it is. But you need to make sure that you're advertised and make sure that you have ABR. Just think about it. If you get one transaction out of having an ABR designation, it pays for itself. Rest of them is all income, but use it. That's one mistake about many people is you don't advertise what you have. You need to advertise what you have as well. Okay?
Okay, got it.
Any question, other comments? I know that Yoshi talked about it. We do have an NAR convention in Anaheim in November. I know it's not cheap to come to the United States, but that's one of the best places that you could network with real estate agents from throughout the world. We are expecting about 2,000 international attendees this year in Anaheim, and you'll meet about 15 to 20,000 realtors throughout the United States. That's when you have a chance to do face-to-face network. Good parties, maybe it's time to take a family vacation. If you have money, family could go to Disneyland. Then you could go to meeting and network, and you could still go to Disneyland. It's walking distance to Disneyland from where we're having convention. Right? Anything else? Yoshi will discuss with your association to make sure, what other classes that we could bring it to you, to Cambodia. And I know I know that live class is better than Zoom. I truly believe that, but when you do a live class from bringing instructor from United States, it could become very, very expensive class, right? Because you have to pay for my airfare, my hotel, and all these things, right? So that's one of the reasons why we try to make this more economical by providing online as well.
Yeah, you're right. I remember when I studied the CIPS, it's a physical class, so the interaction between the teachers and the participant is more very interactive, and we get more benefit from the physical class actually. But anyways, I think at least Zoom meeting is also good, more or less, yeah, rather than nothing, I think. Yeah,
you at least know what I look like.
Yeah, but so I feel like 4 days half days of a classroom, and only 4 days for the class. I feel like it's a bit short of time.
Yeah,
if it can,
it is a little bit short, but you know, ABR is a two-day course, but you know, only reason we do it 4 hours, you know, and spread it is because it's hard to do Zoom all day for me and for you as well, because Zoom class after lunch doesn't work. Because when I'm looking at it, half of the people are sleeping after lunch. Especially, you know, you can do Zoom, you might not be in the office, you could be at home, you know, laying on your bed listening. I don't know, you know, because it look lucky you're not in the United States. In the United States, when we do a Zoom class, everybody's camera have to be on. If you don't have your camera on, you don't get a credit. So you're lucky you're not in Cambodia, because I can't enforce that. So I don't even know half of the people what they're doing. I have no idea. You know, I know most of you, half of the people have, you know, graciously enough to turn the camera on and paying attention. I'm not saying that you're not paying attention, but I don't know. In US, we have a lot of issues. People playing golf while taking class, or people are meeting with their clients, or they're at construction site, and things like that. So we just say, we can't do that. People driving. I had a person that get in an accident while taking my class. So anyway. Any other question, comments, or anything about real estate or US or whatever, NAR or whatever it might be? You know, talk to your, if you have questions about NAR and other things, please talk to your association, because they have a good direct contract with me. And I currently work as an Asia coordinator, which is I oversees all the countries in Asia as well, not just the instructor, through Japan to Korea, through Cambodia to Australia, New Zealand to India. And we have a 6 ambassador. Yoshi is one of them, and he takes care of your country, Cambodia, for you. Yoshi takes care of Cambodia, Indonesia, and Vietnam. In your association, Cambodia is the most active out of the 3 that Yoshi takes care of it. So if he's not spending enough time with you, please let me know. So I could tell him, say, you need to spend more time with Cambodia. I know he's doing a good job, as far as I know. So, but NAR, we're here to assist you in any way that we can. Anything else? I don't want to hold everybody up if they could take early lunch. Does in Cambodia, do you guys eat lunch at 12 o'clock or different time?
12, usually 12.
12? Yeah, some countries different.
Yeah, usually 12 o'clock.
Good.
So one last question, Max. So the world is challenging. So after this course, we're going to implement the strategy and the knowledge that you give us, and we go to apply it. But to upgrade our skill to the next level, we may forget. So in some points in futures, we want to enhance the skill of buyer reps. So what the cost is you recommended in the NAR?
So even within our ABR, once you get a designation, they have a webinar all the time. They have a free webinar all the time. If it's live or recorded, and you could take those anytime.
It's free, right?
Yeah, it's free. Yeah. it's not a 3-hour, 5-hour class. It doesn't give you a certificate, but most of the NAR classes are available online as well. Some people decide to take ABR online, but to me, taking a lot of the classes online is not fun because it's not an interaction. You're just looking at the screen and doing click, click, click. Some people learn that better that way. Some people don't, but most of the people, at least you could ask questions. But, there's a lot of classes. If you want to take a lot of classes online, you could do that as well with NAR on your pace, on pace.
I see.
Online classes. But when you take online classes, there's a test. I'm just letting you know. So if you don't pass that test, you don't get a certificate. So we don't have to have a test when we're doing a live class, including Zoom. All right. Anybody else? I want to thank all of you for joining, and many of you are asking questions and being very interactive. And hopefully you learned something. If you're taking at least 1 or 2 things that you could apply to your business starting this afternoon, that's what worth it. That's how I take class, is I'm trying to get 1 or 2 things out that could apply today. I know there's a lot of homework that we might have to do to make this worth, but I think it's worth it. If you do the homework, if you do what we were taught to do this class, I could almost tell you that you're going to be very successful. Right? You have to make it work. Just taking a class is not going to make you a better agent. You have to apply what you learn from this too. With that said, if there's nothing else, we will let you go.
Thank you very much, Mark.
I'll stay on a little bit if anybody has a question, but thank you very much. A lot of you who participated. I learned a lot about more Cambodia real estate, so that's very good for me. That's why I like teaching classes in different countries.
And I sent you a message on the chat, so thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Gilbert, for good participation.
Thank you very much.
Good luck in your business, everybody.
Thank you.
We'll
very
see
much.
you in Zoom or live somewhere.
So much, Mark.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Everybody's okay?
Thank you.
If you have any question, you can always contact me. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay.